Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. And check out that eye, that's exactly what we want to see. Woo, look at that panel, baby. And that, as they say, is that. Hey, all you minties, Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of all of these hardcovers that have come out recently from Dark Horse Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before I go any further, a big thank you to the folks at Dark Horse for sending us copies of these recent hardcovers. So as I like to do, I like to read things over the last few months and kind of catch up with some recent releases, and that's what I've been doing for the last 3 months. So this is about 3 months worth of reading for different hardcovers, and I'll be honest, some of these took a little bit longer to read than others. Some of them are a little bit more dense, others are just, man, I want more of this. And let me tell you, there's some amazing releases that are coming out in this particular overview. And I know it's really difficult to pick just one that gets the seal of approval. But if I could, oh my gosh. I mean, especially when you've got Richard Corbin here, or something that's ending that kind of, you know, I've been waiting for, or some Mike Mignola or Moebius. But anyway, only one gets the pick of this particular batch, and it's going to be difficult because I still haven't decided. I guess I need to do that before we actually get to the overview. I do put timestamps in the description of the video in case you're curious about one or two titles and want to jump around. And before I go any further, please don't forget to smash that like button. That does go a long way for us here on the channel. Small thing you can do. I gotta fly through these, so these won't be as long and thorough as usual, but I do have to give you the pitch of what these stories are about, or give you an idea of what the stories and, of course, the artwork is about. Oh, so let's go ahead and start with Bowling with Corpses. What an interesting book. Bowling with Corpses and Other Strange Tales from Lands Unknown. If you are a fan of Mike Mignola, this is the one. This is the one. This book has 112 pages, and there are original stories in here, or rather, original strange tales. Mignola, Dave Stewart is the colorist, and then Clem Robbins is the letterer. And there's a little bit about just giving praise to the people that have came before, like Tolkien and Moorcock. But this is an anthology of 8 little fantasy stories, all written and drawn by Mike Mignola. And there is a little sketchbook section, which we'll look at. Again, I'm not going to go through each and every one of these because we have a lot of books to look at. For example, the very first book is exactly what the title of the book is, and that is Bowling with Corpses. It is about this young boy that everybody calls Spoon, leaves his village and goes on a fantastical journey. And he is met by these witches or these ghosts. And they ask him that if he wins this bowling tournament of 3 rounds, he will have his fortune. So his fortune does turn out to be this fist, this broken arm from whoever this priest is that is sitting there. And little things are explained, and some of the stories are a little bit more connected than others. So with this arm, this broken arm that he got from this king or this priest, he is able to do all kinds of things. It might not be the fortune that he wanted, it might not be the treasure that he was looking for or the fame, but he is able to do all kinds of different things, especially defeat all these demons and trolls and witches and vampires. And that's what this story is about. It's about this little boy that goes, and the way he bowls is, of course, with a skull and bones. That's how he ends up bowling, and it's best out of 3. In the beginning, I promise not to talk about all of these, but in the beginning has a different, like almost a director's cut all the way in the back. So there's sketches back here, and all these books again are hardcover and art on board on this one. And see, this is like the original idea, and then later he kind of pitched it and was like, I don't like that. And he went and did something completely different. 112 pages, $24.99, and this one does have sewn binding. It is a standard size hardcover and printed in this thick, glossy paper stock. So if you're a fan of Mignola, look no further than this book to entertain you. You already know. And one day, I'm sure it'll be available in some kind of hardcover library edition. I hope. Gilt Frame. We're going to be talking a lot about this one creator in particular here, and that is Matt Kindt. This one is a little bit different. This is kind of like your Agatha Christie type of story. This collects issues 1 through 3 of Gilt Frame, and 216 pages, $29.99. It is co-written by Margie Kraft Kint, art by Matt Kindt, and then Sophia Helms doing the lettering. And I want to say, I think someone told me that if I had read this, it's a book by Matt Kindt and his mom. So I thought that was really cool, but they should have said it's a book by Margie Kraft Kint and her son. There we go. Mother's Day and all that. Well, on filming day. This is when I'm filming it is Mother's Day, so that's why I thought of that. But yes, this is a classic, like, whodunit type of story. But it's between these two characters. Sam, who's an orphan, and he's in his 20s during this story. And he's taken by his Aunt Mary, who's an older lady. And together, they solve crimes. So it's not your usual type of detective story that you're used to. It's kind of like a clever murder mystery that starts off with them celebrating about a murder that they solved in Paris. But what exactly was that murder? They go back a week earlier to find out what happened. And then it's broken down like this. So to me, it kind of feels like Agatha Christie or Clue, mixed with a little bit, yes, in the movie Clue, I love that movie, a little bit with Knives Out, if you're familiar with that. But then there are scenes that I think of Wes Anderson. So it's got like all of these things in here that Matt Kindt really is playing to his strengths. I can't believe I went with Agatha Christie and not Murder, She Wrote. Like, my mom would be so disappointed in me that I did not mention Murder, She Wrote. Okay, Murder, She Wrote instead of Agatha Christie. I was more familiar with that than the book series. That's my mother-in-law. But anyway, this is where this aunt is taking her nephew on adventures and vice versa, and it's taking them all over the world. Actually, no, there are a couple of twists and turns in this one. It's smart, it's funny, it's pretty fast-paced, and of course, Matt Kindt doing the artwork absolutely helps you escape. This was a nice breath of fresh air because I'm going to be talking about soon about a couple of these books that are kind of dense and it takes some time to read because I think it requires multiple reads in order for you to understand completely everything that's going on. So this is a straightforward story that took a little bit of time to read, but still, it's a lot of fun and something that I did not want to put down. And again, this one has a total of 216 pages. I think in the back, we do have just a little bit of extras here. Another Matt Kindt books. $29.99. The paper stock they're using for this one is a thick matte paper stock. It's not glossy, and it is sewn binding. And that is Gilt Frame. Skull and Bones, Savage Storm. This is a short and sweet story. I read a lot of these like in one day, and then some it took me a couple of months to keep reading. But this one apparently is based on a video game. It's collecting Skull and Bones 1 through 3. It is by John Jackson Miller. I love his Star Wars stuff. And James Mishler. And then art by Christian Rosado. And colors by Roshan Kuriki Anil. And Lucas Gattoni doing the lettering here. So the premise behind this, by the way, this is short. It's like 72 pages, and that's it. And retails for $19.99. The premise behind this one is that there are people on this particular ship, and the ship is about to be attacked by pirates. So this is set, of course, in the past, and this is the world-famous pirate, or at least the crew of the Sylvia believe that this is the world-famous pirate, John Hurlock. So John Hurlock invades the Sylvia ship, and you have Maria here, and you've got Mr. Hubble, who will become like the two protagonists of the story. At first, you think that. as this attack happens, there's a big typhoon, and they all crash land on this, what they believe is a deserted island. And this is when the battle's still taking place, but then they decide to make truce because there could be something else going on here. And this is an interesting story because it's also about survival. It's about how do these people that hate each other, or, you know, they're in it for, of course, the money and the loot. How do they survive on this deserted island, especially when there's twists and turns happening here, and there could be treasure, and there's other pirates that show up through here. And this is all taking place somewhere in the Indian Ocean. And this merchant ship loses their captain and now has to survive out here. And there's somebody out here, it's a mercenary of the Seven Seas known as the Wolf Hunter, that is coming after them. I'm not really sure how it ties into the video game, so if you've played the video game, by all means, please let me know in the comments down below. But it is a short and sweet and very violent story. This one here, out of the ones I've talked about so far, has a mature rating, or at least I think it has a mature rating. It's a media tie-in, is what they have back here. But just because of the violence and some of the language. 72 pages, $19.99. Lester of the Lesser Gods. This was a book that I knew about because when I talked to Eric Powell a few years ago at C2E2, it was when he took his books over to Albatross Press, whenever he was trying to print his own stuff. And he was currently working on a pitch. And I think what happened was the pitch didn't work out, and it became... the TV show became this comic book. So written by Eric Powell and Lucky Yates with Matt Cushing on pages 7 through 29. Gideon Kendall doing the art, the coloring, and the lettering right here. And there's color assistance. But this is all about the character of Lester, Odin's son. And this one has 128 pages, and it retails for $24.99. And it's practically, the basic story of this one is... it's a ridiculous comic book. It's like Mad Max meets Thor and a couple of other elements. Kind of like Mad Magazine is what it reminds me of. So there's a little backstory to Odin's son, Lester, who was, for lack of a better term, sired out of the... in a out-of-order bathroom stall. So in a toilet. So he kind of was foreshadowed to become absolutely nothing. So when the apocalypse happens, Lester takes on the demons and Satan himself and trying to make his father proud, like any son that is kind of shoved to the side. So he's got this sword with him. He calls the sword the Razor Dong. What is it? The Razor Dong the Ass Splitter. I'm not making it up. So it's humor like that. It's crude humor like that. So if that's not your cup of tea, this might not be for you. And then he's got a couple of other people that help him out, and all of it to try to make his dad proud. And he goes on several types of adventures, but a lot of it dealing with like demon hunting and ridiculousness of characters teaming up with like this guy named Will Fry, the Technomancer, I think is what he is. But it is broken down into 3 different chapters. And it is sewn binding. The art is on this glossy paper stock. Let's look at the extras in the back, because there are some extras back here, like a sketchbook and notes right here. I didn't have time to go through all the extras or the notes, so I'm going to be surprised about all these, as you all are. This is the Catwoman that is has six breasts. Yes. And then Lester of the Lesser Gods. These are the covers by Eric Powell and other Albatross Press books. Sewn binding, glossy paper stock. Retail price $24.99. And again, this one has 128 pages. Canto, Volume 5, A Place Like Home. This is supposed to be the grand finale of Canto, and it collects Canto, A Place Like Home 1 through 6. And this one has 160 pages and retails for $29.99. David Boer, Andrew Sucker come back for this amazing tale. Vittorio Astone doing the colors and lettering by And World Designs. So this is a note from David right here talking about the editors and the other artists that he had teamed up with. And a note from Drew, kind of like their goodbye, but this does leave it open for some more stories. I'm so glad to be home again. So is it a happy ending? does Canto get what he wants? So this is supposed to be the big fight. This is bringing everything together. Canto's journey began when he was looking for a heart for the little girl that he fell in love with, the Clockwork Girl. However, he was too late. So now that big fantastical adventure has come here, has come back home. We have the Shrouded Man that has come back, and now it's threatening his home. As a matter of fact, Canto at the very beginning gets called outside of Arcana to go and rescue his friends. However, it seems like it was just a ploy to get him out of Arcana while something horrible is going to happen. So while his friends are captured here, the Shrouded Man makes his move on Arcana. Now you're going to see the return of a lot of characters here, and you're going to see some deaths. It's just how these battles are done and how these battles are won. But you are going to see characters like Keela and Tella and Nico and also Ricta and Falco come back through here. And Essa, oh, I love that character. And a couple of other surprises. A couple of returning characters. Some of the friends that he's made along the way show up here for this big final battle. So all the friends are finally together. Not just the tin soldiers, or the clockwork soldiers, but his friends that he has made along the way. And not every one of them makes it out of this story alive, which is a bummer, but you have to you have to up the stakes when it comes to the finale, right? Like it has to be done in order to see just how much the Shrouded Man is capable of doing. And of course, the Shrouded Man comes with his own past, right? And what's the deal with the hearts? Well, let's find out. Hope the people that have seen my video of issues 1 or volumes 1 through 4 are intrigued enough to go and find out together. In the back, you do have the bio on the creators, and then of course your cover gallery here. And some of these are variant covers. But the book has 160 pages, some of them in thumbnail size. $29.99. It is sewn binding and printed in this thick glossy paper stock like the previous volumes, and this wraps up this era of Canto. But there could be more. Death Strikes, the Emperor of Atlantis. This book has 128 pages and retails for $24.99. And out of all the books, this is one that's a little bit smaller. So the trim size of this one is just a little bit different than the rest of them. So far, we're just looking at books with art on board. And this is a very unique book. This is the one that I thought, oh my gosh, how can you top this? Because in case people weren't familiar with the actual story, it's such a heartbreaking story. Okay, so this is adapted by Dave Moss and Patrick Lay. Dave Moss doing the writing and Patrick Lay being the artist. But it's based on the opera. I'm not even going to butcher that, but I think it means Death Strikes, the Emperor of Atlantis, by Peter Kien and Victor Ullmann, who's the composer. Now, the backstory about that is that these two men were in Nazi concentration camps. And I think it was in the Czech Republic. There's a bio about this right here, like talking about the actual people that wrote the original opera. And the opera is full of just sarcasm and dark humor. It's a look at death in a different way. So Death decides to go on strike because he can't keep up with the war machine that was happening. So in comes other characters, and these are your main characters right here. And you do have death, but you also have life. And life is embodied as a mime, as a Pierrot, I think is how you pronounce it, as a performer who laughs through the tears. So it's such a powerful story, especially when you know the behind the scenes of what happened. And you see life working alongside death because it's a necessity. It's not that death is evil, but it's just a part of life. It's a normal part of everything about the human condition. You're going to be seeing some beautiful things in here about how life creates love, laughter, and learning to appreciate life. And to me, it's just a freaking amazing story that I wasn't even aware of. I didn't know it was a play. But when he goes on strike, I didn't know where it was going to go. But it goes into some satirical stuff. And I thought the dark kind of humor and the sarcasm actually works when telling a story like this. It is a very powerful read and one definitely not to be missed. it is a story that opens at the beginning, and then there's extras in the back. Let me just show you some of the extras here. So you actually have drawings from the Holocaust and some writings of the original opera. And then, of course, the concept designs for the book, the way it should look. Bios on the creators, and acknowledgments and special thanks. And printed in this thick matte paper stock. And it has sewn binding. Again, this one has 128 pages and retails for $24.99, and it is such a powerful book. Subgenre. Remember when I said that we're going to keep going back to Matt Kindt? This is another one of those Matt Kindt books. And this is written by him, but artwork by Wilfredo Torres, and the colors by Bill Crabtree and Jim Campbell doing the lettering. I think they've worked together. I know Jim Campbell and Matt Kindt have worked together before. I don't know. No, there was a series called Bang that they worked on, Wilfredo Torres and Matt Kindt. So this one here collects subgenre 1 through 4. It has 120 pages and retails for $29.99. So we start off, this is a really unique story. I dig this one. We start off in the future where we find the character of Verge sleeping on his couch, or this little recliner, and his AI, like hologram named Ray, is trying to wake him up, and he's a private detective in this dystopian type of like cyberpunk future, trying to solve just different crimes. So he takes on a case where it's a triple homicide. Somebody that, it looks like the character that attacked him at his house, and it ties it all together. So he's trying to solve this murder that spirals into this whodunit type of story, which Matt Kindt is very famous for doing, but that's okay. I kind of like that trope about him. There is something different that happens here. So Verge, who some people call V, and Ray are kind of partners in this, even though she is just like a holographic image, like a AI, if you will, almost like Siri. Now, once he is attacked again by these mysterious people, something happens to him where he wakes up, and now he's being called V, and this is where he is with his fairy, and now instead of this future, right here, this dystopian future, almost like Blade Runner, we have like a sword and sorcery type of story here that is setting him up as a barbarian, again fighting against these people. Does he remember who he is in the future? Does he remember being Verge? Or is really this right here, is this really the reality? And that's just a dream? Or is this the dream and the future's the reality? Or are both of them dreams, and the real Verge or the real V is somewhere out there asleep? It's an interesting book with some twists and turns. It's definitely got that crime, science fiction, and then, of course, the humor elements added to it. This one is a little mature rating, basically due to the violence and, of course, the language. Printed in this thick, glossy paper stock, and we go all the way to the back here to look at some of the extras, like some of the covers, and then some of the sketchbook that they added back here. Dark Horse is great for always adding all the extras in the back. Sewn binding, thick, glossy paper stock. And that is subgenre. Mortal Terror, Volume 1. Christopher Golden, Tim Levin, Peter Berting, and Chris O'Halloran. And Mortal Terror, Volume 1. This one has 120 pages and retails for $29.99, and that is a Mignola cover. And this is embossed right here, Mortal Terror, and it has that red foil to it. So, Peter Berting is the artist here, and Chris O'Halloran is the colorist, lettering by Clem Robbins. This is a twist on your classic story of Dracula. So what they decide to do with this particular concept is take familiar characters from Bram Stoker's Dracula, and also the setting and the world, and turning it on its head. So what that means is that everything you knew about the stories is different, and there's really no way to know what the hell is going to happen next. So you have the story of the vampires that are pretty much now like humans. It's vampire tales in which those characters from Bram Stoker's book now appear as humans, and the humans from the book are now vampires. So you have the character of Lucy Westendra, you've got the character of Mina Murray, and you've got the character of Jonathan Harker, who are now living underground like the rest of the vampires in London, trying to keep the undead city safe from mortals. And you have Count Dracula, who is now a human, and he's more like a terrorist through here. And that's what this is. And like I said, if you're familiar with the stories, there's going to be like twists and turns that you're not going to see coming because you're used to the way they're supposed to be portrayed. So a lot of fun with this one. This one does end on a bit of a, I don't want to say a huge cliffhanger. It does end enough to give you just enough information to let you know that this kind of wraps up a part of the story, but they do leave it open for a lot more. These are the character designs that we're looking at in the back. This is another standard size cover, or a standard size hardcover, and printed in this thick glossy paper stock and sewn binding. 120 pages and retails for $24.99. Now we are at the point of the video where we are looking at all of the spines of the books that have recently come out from Dark Horse Comics. And also a reminder to please hit that like button. Really, that goes a long way for us here on the channel. It is a very, very small thing you can do, but it does mean the world to us, especially with the way that YouTube promotes all of these videos. They love that AI stuff. Yeah, 1 minute or shorter. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue with the overviews. Part of the Moebius library, The Major. I was so excited when I saw this in the catalog and when I heard that this was coming out finally. But it is a lot different than what I was expecting. This has 192 pages and retails for $39.99. This is one of those books that I had to go back and read because it is so difficult to try to understand. It is all done by Moebius, and of course there's translation notes. There's actual translation notes by Diana Schutz and all the way in the back that say, okay, a lot of these panels, a lot of these pages were kind of hard to translate because it doesn't translate properly into English. So this is a little bit of a forward, right, or a prologue that tells you that you're following a story, or rather one might say this is a non-story. It was created during a decade-long period, and you're going to see the character of the Major. As a matter of fact, it's so surreal, it's so weird. But the Major's like inside of this box. And there's people that are talking to him and are interacting with him. And you don't really get to see the Major for a while. And you've got these classic looking Moebius type of birds through here. And they're all talking about him like he's not really there. And he's like, is anyone there? And you finally start to see the inside of this box and what it looks like. And you get the feeling that perhaps the Major is dealing with like schizophrenia, maybe, is what's happening through here. And it's just a really weird, surreal look. Like, it reminds me of something that Dali would have filmed in his career. Like, whenever he was doing those like independent films. That's what this reminds me of. And it is just so weird, and it makes absolutely no sense. So I went back and reread it, and I'm like, man, do I love the artwork. But for a Moebius book, I was expecting something else, especially when I've been waiting a long time for a library Moebius book. And it's mostly black and white up until you get to the very, very end. I'm not going to reveal everything here, but you do get some color pages and you get some notes on the translation. And there are some panels that are in color too. So these are the type of notes you're going to be seeing here about the literal translation, about what the Major is, the French word for certain people, and it's just an interesting translation because a lot of it, you know, has to be almost localized to kind of make sense. But if you're a fan of Moebius you already have this, right? But for anybody that wants to try out Moebius, this is one of the most trippiest books. It almost feels like an art book, like an unfinished art book in the way that it's read. So I don't recommend this as being your first Moebius book. Go and read something like the Incal to go and see the beauty of his artwork. This is for like true completists of Moebius that want the complete library, and hopefully one day we'll get something like Blueberry. Oh my gosh, that is one of my most wanted books from Europe that has not been released here properly. I think we only had 4 volumes. But anyway, a hardcover, art on board, and again, this one retailing for $39.99. That's the major. The latest Hellboy hardcover is the Hellboy and the B.P.R.D. 1955-1957. We've had Hellboy and the B.P.R.D. 1952-1954, and this is the latest standard size hardcover, $39.99, and much like the other Hellboy and, of course, B.P.R.D. hardcovers, it does have a dust jacket. A little bit about Mike Mignola, and then all of his collaborators over here on the right-hand side. I don't think it misses anybody. Then the silver foil embossed right there, and the B.P.R.D. 1955-1957, Mignola, Robertson, Norton, others, Dark Horse logo, and nothing in the back there. Very similar to what this looks like. And let's go ahead and crack this open and talk a little bit about the stories in here and just show you the artwork and extras. Okay, let's go ahead and open this up. You have your end sheets there. Hellboy and the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, 1955 to 1957. Mike Mignola, Chris Robertson, and then you have art from Sean Martinborough, Brian Chirilla, Paulo Rivera, just to name a few of the artists, and colors by Dave Stewart, Bill Crabtree, Lou Fridge, and Clem Robbins doing the lettering here for the entirety of the book. It is separated by the different years, all of 1956, and then, of course, the one-shot. 1956 makes for a really interesting story. The book has 456 pages, retails for $39.99. So we kick it off with the 1955 stories, Secret Nature. This is all about Hellboy and looking for a series of cattle mutilations here in America. And then we get to the second story, which is a little bit longer, and it's the revelation about other paranormal agencies that are working for other governments, because we knew they have to exist, right? We knew about the shadow war between them. So that goes a little bit deeper into who they are. And then there's a human combustion story for the third issue in here. The 1956 series is what I find so interesting, because in the lore of Hellboy and previous issues of Hellboy and B.P.R.D., we knew that in 1956, Hellboy spent most of his time in Mexico. So most of this 1956 stories, he barely appears in. It's mainly focusing on the other cast of characters of B.P.R.D. And that's okay, because I really enjoy a lot of these characters of the B.P.R.D. Now, it does wrap up with the Hellboy Lobster Johnson story, which is freaking phenomenal. I love this story, and I'm so glad it's finally collected. And here it is in all its glory. Now, this one definitely does have the Hellboy heavy story. And then we move on to 1957. And 1957 features Family Ties, which is Sue and Hellboy go and try to retrieve a paperback copy of The Witchcraft of Demonology. And then there's a story about Professor Brutenholm and Hellboy as they go in and investigate a haunted graveyard. And then there's a story of Hellboy and Woody that go on a field mission to investigate these spaceships, like these flying saucers that are happening. There's also a story where Hellboy teams up again with Professor Brutenholm and Agent Argy to go and investigate these like noisy, abandoned, I think I got sawmill in is it Portland, or it's somewhere in Oregon. Now, most people would probably get bored with 1956 because it doesn't feature a lot of Hellboy. But to me, it's what makes it such a unique book. I like focusing on the other characters from the Bureau. This right here gets my seal of approval, basically because I haven't read the 1956 or 57 stories before. 55 I had in a previous, I think it was a hardcover, like a standard size hardcover, but I have never read this one here. So if you are a fan of Hellboy, this is it. If you've never read Hellboy, this is actually a great introduction to the character because you see the B.P.R.D. and how they work with Hellboy in the past. So you vaguely have to be familiar with him. There is a story in here where they kind of recap some of the things that had happened in the past. They don't really foreshadow a lot of the things happening in the future, not too much in your face, but it's just a great, phenomenal read, and that's why this one got the seal of approval. And it was difficult, because there are some solid books in this batch. And then, of course, like the rest of the Hellboy and B.P.R.D. books, you are just given so much extras, original art. I swear we are so spoiled when it comes to these collected editions because of just all the extras that they put in here. Unused artwork, Hellboy, like thumbnail sketches, and then of course the final product, and then some of the covers here. Like the full splash page covers. Just like the other B.P.R.D. volumes, this one has sewn binding printed in this thick glossy paper stock, and that is Hellboy and the B.P.R.D. 1955 to 1957. Blacking Out. This is a quick 64-page book, $19.99. And it is another one of those crime books I really enjoyed. It could be like a movie that they could make. It is by Chip Mosher, Peter Krause, Julia Brusco, Ed Dukeshire, and Tom Mueller working together. It is an oversized book. It almost feels like a magazine-sized type of story. This is the cover here. I love that the cover is done by different folks. This is Eduardo Rizzo and Jacob Phillips down here. And the crucifix plays a big, important part in this story. So it is all about this disgraced cop named Conrad. And it starts off at the end here with this string that is coming out of his car. What is that? Was it attached to a kite? Was it attached to some kind of like flying vehicle? Whatever it was, we're going to find out at the very end. So this is the character of Conrad, who's kind of seeking redemption for an unsolved murder and it's set during the California's fire seasons. So Conrad is this character that comes back to this place to try to find the actual killer of Karen Littleton, whose body was found burnt, just like the rest of the acres that were burned and scorched during this fire. But he seems to believe that someone killed her. Now, everybody is blaming his father, or her father, I'm sorry, Karen's father, for killing her. And he wants to clear that man's name. He meets this woman right here, Anita, who has recently lost her mother, and she's going through changes. We get to see some of the friends that he's made along the way, like Maddie right here. And he's got friends in the police force. He's got a lawyer friend right here. And Lund, for example. And Lund is the one that's trying to get his help to try to clear the father's name from her murder, because he's trying to almost like guilt him into it. Now, the only clue that he has that he keeps going back to is this crucifix that she was wearing. So he starts questioning some of the people that perhaps he missed out on questioning the first time around when he first opened the case. And that's when the crime starts opening up, and that's when a lot of the revelations come out about who could have possibly done this. And I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to tell you what happens, but this is a great, quick, and fun read. A fun read. It's not fun. It is a dark story. And I think, no, they don't really rate it, but this one definitely has mature themes to it. Basically the language and of course the violence through here, and just even what the story is about. In the back, you do have some of the other covers right here, and then the bio on the creators. 64 pages, $19.99, art on board, sewn binding, and it is glossy paper stock. The Legend of Luther Arkwright. Now this one came sealed in plastic, and it does have a leaflet right here telling you how much the book is. This one is $39.99. It has 240 pages. That is the art on board. And it's like a leather, like a faux leather look to it. I like that. Used to be like the Masterworks were done like this, but this actually looks and feels like leather. And this is, of course, the gold foil right there, including the character of Luther. Introduction by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And Brian Talbot, of course, is the creator behind this. Now, I will be 100% honest with you. I did not know this was the third book of the series. I really thought The Adventures of Luther Arkwright was the very first one. So this is the third one. There was a sequel called The Heart of Empire. And I've never read any of these books. I've only known about Luther Arkwright due to the work of Brian Talbot at really DC Comics, right? I know that he did a lot of things at Rebellion, or I'm sorry, 2000 AD. But for me, a lot of it came from the work on Sandman or Legends of the Dark Knight. And I found out about the book, The Adventures of Luther Arkwright, which I think is still the very first graphic novel to come out of England, if I'm not mistaken. So this being the third one, I hadn't read anything about the character. I had to really pay attention. I had to keep going back to this one. This is the one that took me a while to read. Not that it's a bad book, but just what the basic premise is. It's crazy. Now, the artwork is insanely detailed. I love it. I've always been a fan of his art. It starts off with this really cryptic opening right here. The date is the 4th of May, 2058, apparently 50 years after the first story took place. And Luther is approached by this bald woman here that says we could have been lovers, but instead, I'm just going to look inside of your mind and see this fascinating brain of yours and how it works. And then we go to the flashback of how all this got started. So you are explained everything through here. So if you haven't read the first 2 volumes, don't worry. It explains everything. This one does have a mature theme, basically due to the language and some of the sexual content in here. And then, of course, some of the violence. Now, Luther is this being known as a homo novus, who is the next step up in the evolution. So think of like mutants, right? It grants him certain abilities like to heal, and the most important ability is to jump across different dimensions. So he can go, it's like, I swear, this was the multiverse before the multiverse was a thing. So that's really interesting that this book comes out now. At least it came out here. I think it came out in England a few years ago, but it was brought over to America by Dark Horse Comics, who I think also brought the first one over. So I didn't know about the second one. Anyway, so Luther is this homo novus, again, more like a mutant, right, with these individual abilities. And he is being recruited to join this other group. And he doesn't want to be recruited. So that's what this is about. It's a huge confrontation. It's a huge game of chess between these two beings. We find out about the Proteus and what exactly the Proteus is. It is a deep read on who the Proteus is. Again, long before X-Men. Or, I guess, maybe that character existed before? Or maybe this is the first appearance. I wasn't really sure on that one. So if you know, let me know in the comments down below. But this is the type of artwork. It's not like a heavy read. It's just a deep read, right? It's not like it's dialogue heavy. There are parts that are. But it's more like a deep, what the heck is going on type of read. And to a lot of people, that's something that you need. But for me, I needed a break in between some of the chapters here, even though it's not really broken down into chapters. I needed a break from every 20 pages or so because it was too deep of a read, and going back to some of the things that I didn't know had already been written, like that second story, or I haven't even read the first one. So it's got a lot of political stuff in here. It's got, of course, a lot of dystopian versions of what England should look like, and it's got a lot of humor and a lot of grim to it too. So that's all I can say about it. This is printed in this thick matte paper stock. In the back are the end sheets, which are similar to the end sheets beginning there. But that's what Brian Talbot's Legend of Luther Arkwright is. And this is the type of artwork that you're going to be finding in here. Okay, so it is separated into parts. Thought I was making that up at first. I think this one here requires a second read, at least for me. If you find this, I'm already dead. It's another one of those Matt Kent books. This is collecting, if you find this, I'm already dead, 1 through 3. And it has 120 pages and retails for $29.99. Matt Kent, Dan McDade, and then ink assist by Matt Kent, Bill Crabtree, and Jim Campbell. Again, lettering and coloring. This was a great read. I really like this because, again, this one feels like a movie. This is about this lady reporter right here, Robin, who is a like a big shot reporter. And it's all set in this possible future where 5 years ago, a gate opened up and it opened a quantum realm. Not the quantum realm, but a quantum realm to another world. And it's a world or a planet they call Terminus. It's full of cosmic wonders. It's full of new things. But it's also full of a war that has been taking place. It's like humans are now caught in this political power struggle that's happening. And this is the first reporter that's going over there to bring back to Earth the news as to what this war is about. The humans have already established kind of like a colony with walls around it that no aliens can get in. So the Marines go in and they aren't ready for this. I love that this is what is his name? Gil, I think. Captain Gil. And he's getting the men ready. He's like, you have no idea what this is. You think that you know what this is. So it's Scout and Zoot and Danny and Matt. All of them not ready for what they're about to see. But I love that he makes fun of her. And then he's totally flirting with her going, look, I'm actually a big fan of your stuff. 5 minutes into the landing, they are all killed. With the exception of her and Gil right here. I think that is his name, Gil. Well, I'll tell you why I can't remember his name really quick. But anyway, they escape these aliens, and this is what the aliens look like. They don't communicate in English, and there's no way for humans to communicate with them. They have completely destroyed this army base, and what she was supposed to be reporting doesn't come, because they have to leave and evacuate. They go through the sewage tunnels, and here's when they're trying to blend in with the aliens right here. They have to wear their clothing because, like I said, there's like a big political power struggle that's happening on this planet. So there are different races of people. And they're being chased. So the first issue really, I'm just going to talk about the first issue, I promise. The first issue is all about them being chased. They go through the sewers. The aliens are after them. And he sticks his head out and gets cut in half and killed. Meaning that Robin is now the only living human. That's why I couldn't remember his name. But I think it is Captain Gil. Yes, it is Gil. Yeah, Gil gets killed. There we go. And the rest of this is about her survival in this planet called Terminus. And not being able to communicate is just part of the problem. Here we have some of the covers, some of the original art, the character concept, the language that they built, the thumbnail sketches, the page layouts, lots of extras. Printed in this thick matte paper stock, other matte Kint books, and there's your end sheets right there, sewn binding. And that is, if you find this, I'm already dead. Now we have come to Richard Corbin's Den. And oh my gosh, this is a series that I have fallen in love with. It is so weird and creepy. And yes, this obviously gets my seal of approval. Here's what the spines look like, because this was such a massive freaking journey. And there's volume 1, so you can get an idea of how the set will look like on your shelf. And of course, Murky World. We know we're getting Rat God later on. It's crazy that we're getting all this Richard Corbin collected editions in just a year or so. That is amazing, especially if you're a fan of Corbin. But shifting the focus back to these, here's what the backs of the books look like. And you have the Dark Horse logo, the Phantasor Press right there. The volumes 2 and 3 are $34.99, and volumes 4 and 5 are $39.99. There's blurbs in here from Guillermo del Toro, Matt Kint, Christos Gage, and of course Cullen Bunn. Each one of these does have a dust jacket, so when I do an overview of them, I'll be taking the dust jacket off. And it's really cool because it's the picture there, but it's a full splash of the cover. And just like the first volume, they have this gold foil frame, Richard Corbin in gold foil here on the spine, and then again the frame back here. I think that's a really nice touch. Den volume 2, and of course the title is Muvovum. Sure, that's how you pronounce it. This one here is volume 3, so let's get the dust jacket off, and we'll look at the flaps of this one, which, much like volumes 1 and the rest of them, is absolutely blank. But again, it is that cover. And then volume 3, Children of Fire. That's the one that starts the new storyline with different characters. And then, of course, this is volume 4 right there. And whenever we're talking about Richard Corbin, I gotta make sure I'm careful. I'm sorry, this is volume 5. That it doesn't show anything that I can't show on YouTube. And gosh, just look at that. That is absolutely stunning right there. And then, of course, the back of the book. That's volume 4, Dreams and Alarums. And the books themselves are sewn binding, each and every one of these. But I'm going to go through them really quickly to kind of give you an idea of the artwork in here and then what the story is a little bit about. Okay, let's go ahead and get this opened. And got to go through these quick. This is volume 2, Muvovum. Richard Corbin, of course, Nate Piekos, and then Jose Villarrubia. There is an introduction here by Walter Simonson talking about just the importance of Richard Corbin's work. This one opens up really strange because we have Dan and Kath. If you watch my overview of the first one, then you already know who these characters are. But just in case, this is David Ellis Norman, who has traveled to another world where he is like this big barbarian. But he's wearing a suit here. And what it is that Kath is wanting to go back to Earth. She's tired of living in this barbarian world after they defeated their enemies. So he strips his clothes off and he's like, okay, I'm going to be naked again. So this is all about their return or trying to get back to Earth. We are introduced to some new villains through here. And again, the nudity, insurers, and sexual content. All these books are mature. Even the one where they have their clothes on. And I'll explain what that is in a little bit. This one here has 128 pages. There is the epilogue. Read it after you read this because this explains a lot of the things that you might be like, oh, wait, that actually makes sense now. But it goes through here and when these books were originally published and, of course, the maps of Neverwhere. And let me make sure I can show you this because, as you all know, he just loves his nudity. And, of course, I had to skip that page really quick. All right, and there's your end sheets. That's volume 2. Volume 3 is The Children of Fire. This one is a different type of story that I did not understand until I read the outro by Jose Villarrubia. He explains a lot about this. This is an introduction from Madman about when he was first introduced to, of course, Richard Corbin. This one is really strange because this is a prequel to what happens later on. This takes place in the planet Zomir, and we're introduced to a couple of new characters. We're introduced to Kills, who's this big muscular woman right here that will play a big part, especially when you get to the later stories. And then we're introduced to Mal, I think is the character's name, who's the Mel throughout this particular story, and he's the skinny zombie-like Mel. And they go on a journey, and the journey, it's like, wait, where are Den and Kath is what you're going to be asking. And you're going to see a lot of familiar things that have been in this world before. But I don't want to give away what happens because there is a connection to a particular character that was in the first volume and the second volume of Den. But this one being a prequel helps build who that character is, and it's one that I didn't see coming. And again, it did help to read the outro by Jose Villarrubia. These are letter pages right here, and of course the cover gallery, and some of the original grayscale art right here for the book. And then even some original comics right here for Green Wit 2, and introduction by Jose Villarrubia. All right, let's move on to book 4. This is the longest one. This one has 192 pages. And there's your end sheets right here. And this is when things change. Richard Corbin and Simon Revelstoke and Richard Corbin, of course, doing the art and script. Nate Piekos and Jose Villarrubia. There is an introduction here by Colin Bunn talking about heavy metal. And that's how he found out about Den and how he found out about Richard Corbin. This one is when Den was actually published as comics. So there are some limitations. There's no more nudity going on. He has to cover Den up. As a matter of fact, like he wears these like white shorts, and Kath is covered up. And some time has passed since their last adventure, where Dan is feeling a little bit more broken, a little bit more battered. And there are dreamlike sequences again, and the dreamlike sequences take you to these pieces of art that are done in the style of that newer volume, whereas this looks like a comic book scan right here. So this is now going back to focusing on the characters of Den and Kath, and then their connections to that third volume, because this is where it gets a little confusing, because now there's two Dens. And maybe they're related, maybe they're not. And then in the back, we have the Metamorphosis article there by Jose Villarrubia, and then we have covers for Den right here. And letter pages. And, of course, the bio on Richard Corbin. And now, let's get to the fifth one. The fifth volume. So, this is the one that I don't think has ever been printed in English. So, Dark Horse, this is the last one, too. Wraps up this era. There's a forward here by Christos Gage. And talking about how he has an original piece. I love this. Oh, are you ready for the most obnoxious opening of a forward ever? Talking about how he owns an original piece by Richard Corbin. This now becomes full circle. Like, this takes us back to the beginning of Den in encountering this woman from his past. And there's a new wizard, just like Sienna is a newer character. But as I mentioned, it gets a little confusing because there are two Dens. And there's Mao, and then, of course, how the character of Kill is connected to everybody. Because this is long after Kath has left Den. And which Den are we talking about now? As confusing as it is, oh my gosh, this was such a joy to read. He was such a visionary. And there's artwork in here that, again, much like my overview of Volume 1, I was asking, just how in the hell did he do that? What is that? Is that a photo reference? Is that a photo? He's just drawing on top of the photo? What the hell am I looking at? There's a lot of moments that I did that, and it made me go and look at each of the panels, which, as someone that reads comics for a living, and I promise this isn't bragging at all, it's just, you have to read fast because there's just so many. You saw the stack of books here. But with this, you can't. You have to take your time. And I hate that. I hate that for me, because it's like, oh, wow, look at the amount of detail. But you owe it to yourself to look at each panel and just wonder, how in the hell is some of this possible? Just, oh man. 120 pages. And that is the last of the volumes, but we got some more Richard Corbin coming out later this year. Last but certainly not least is the Madman Universe Library Edition Volume 6. This is the one that's taken me a long time to read. I think this is one I've had for like 5 months. But, you know, things unfortunately happened in my personal life last year that kept me from reading a lot of things, and I just kept going back to this one. This one's a really interesting collection, which I'll get more in here in a little bit. You have Mike Allred and Laura Allred, and then that picture there on the other flap, and it's basically the same as the dust jacket, just like previous versions. So let's go ahead and open this up and talk about the story in here and check out the pictures and the extras in the back. Okay, let's get this opened. There's your end sheets right here. Madman Library Edition, the graphic music and graphic music, Mr. Gum, Who Sell Out, You Sell Out, Madman in Your Face 3D Special, and X-Ray Robot 1 through 4. This book has 520 pages and retails for this one's $99.99. So this is a really weird collection because it feels like graphic music and graphic music are these older stories that, you know, they definitely predate Madman, but the ideas are there. For example, this one here, this miniseries, is all about Max, who's a vampire with a conscience, and he has a lot of problems. It's very violent, and this one here has more mature themes than any of the other Madman books. And you'll start seeing the evolution of his art. And then we get to graphic music. This one's a little bit different. Here, let's actually get to it. Let's fast forward to vampires. Yeah, the way that this is done right here. So in this, you're going to see some characters that will be appearing later on, like Bill Mummy. You've got Greg Turnpike. You've got Buster Lloyd. You've got Winford, Weenie Wendell, that guy. You have Frankenstein. That's right. Frankenstein appears through here. Josephine Lombard, Matt Mattress, and then Dean Krept, just to name a few of the characters that would be appearing later on. But here is where you're going to see the evolution from this to this. So I really do like the fact that this is all collected in here. And yes, lots of music tropes, lots of different pop culture references made through here. And just to see the evolution of Mike Allred throughout the years, going from something like this, where it's not that detailed, and I think those are new colors, I think it was originally printed in black and white, to something like this. Now, the downside to this being in here, the 3D book, the in-your-face 3D special, is that you need 3D glasses for this. Otherwise, it becomes a headache to try to read. And I cannot find my Freddy is Dead 3D glasses, which is so weird that in this household, those are the only two pair of 3D glasses that I own. What grown-ass man does not have a pair of 3D glasses in his house, I ask? Mr. Gum, who sell out. This is another one of those mini stories. And then X-Ray Robot, who's about a dimensional hopping character that goes inside of this robot suit. It's actually a really cool story. Very little to do with Madman, but still pretty cool that it's collected through these pages. But it's the 3D stuff, and there's a lot of it that you're going to need those 3D glasses for. And then in the back, you do have some extras from different artists right here. Like you've got a piece by Sean Murphy, I think, does a piece through here. And different artists that were inspired by, of course, Madman over the years. And that pinup by Jack Kirby. Oh, wow. That's so cool. Frank Frazetta. Nick Darrington. But these are the ones that are done in the 3D covers. And the Madmaniverse outro right here from Mike Allred, talking about how perhaps there might be a 7th volume one day. Much like the previous volumes, this one does come with a bookmark ribbon. Again, 520 pages printed in this thick, glossy paper stock with sewn binding. Woo! Oh my gosh, I did it! I did it! That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of each of these books. In the comments down below, let me know which ones you've read and you're like, oh my gosh, that was really good. Or which ones you're going to pick up you didn't even know existed. Would love to know all those comments down below. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Everyone, and I mean everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.